Okay, I'd like to bring this meeting to order. The Village of Villa Park Board of Trustees regular meeting, April 14th, 2024. Clerk Konecki, please call the roll.
Trustee Alfano.
Here.
Trustee Cordova.
Here.
Trustee Corkery.
Here.
Trustee Kosar.
Here.
Trustee Kumar.
Here.
Trustee Patrick.
Here.
President Casone.
Here, and if we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and then remain standing. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us together this evening. May we have meaningful discussions that will help us to assist our village in these trying times. Help us to make the decisions that will affect the staff, directors, and residents of Villa Park. Guide us through the challenges we face, and may we approach each other with respect and kindness as one group. In your name, amen. Okay, item 3, amendments to the agenda. Are there any amendments? Trustee Kozar.
Yeah, I'd like to make an amendment to move item 8, appointments to commissions, to the date certain of May 19th, after the new board is sworn in.
Okay, yes, why?
Because I think appointments to the commission should be made by the new board and not the outgoing board or the outgoing president.
Okay, we have a motion to move item 8 to May 19th. We have a second? We have a second? Trustee Patrick?
I'll second that.
Okay, questions or comments? Trustee Cordova?
Are there people here that are going to be on this? Like, I've seen a few of you here, so how
Yeah.
you feel about that, but
Yeah.
that was just my question.
Yeah, I think the board up here should make this decision. We're the ones that have been working with these people for the last 3 years that have been up here. I don't think there's a need to change that for the new board. That's my opinion. Anyone else? Trustee Kozar?
Well, I think it's just for exactly that reason. I don't have anything specific about any of the people, but I think there's been an election. The village has spoken that the new leadership in the village is those that have been elected. And part of being an elected leader is appointing those that serve to assist us in that. And I think that those decisions need to be made by the new board, not the outgoing board. You're looking at nominating or appointing people for a term of the next 3 years from an outgoing board. If you're going to put somebody in place to help you assist in the leadership and the management and the board decisions moving forward, it is those that sit up here that should make that decision for their term in office.
Okay.
Just a point of clarification. The appointment authority is with the village president, with the board being the advice and consent of the Board of Trustees. Your position still applies, and your motion will still apply, but I just want some clarification that the appointing authority is with the village president. So if it is moved to the 19th, it will be the sitting village president at that time that has the appointing authority with the advice and consent of the Board of Trustees.
So all the more reason to move that to the 19th, because President Casone won't be the president on the 19th. So if you have appointing authority, I mean, you should yield that appointing authority to the new president that's coming in.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Manager Harling?
Did you want to? Yeah.
Go first.
So this is just for appointments, but we have comprehensive plan, we have ratifications, we have resolutions that we should do. Should we pause in that as well until we have the new board in, or can we go about the business that the board is kind of asked to do?
Go ahead.
Well, the motion is just for item 8 at this time.
Okay.
So,
If you want to make that motion, go
Manager Harling?
President Casone, I just had a question, and most of the appointments expire on May 1st, and I didn't know this was coming up, so I wasn't able to prepare for this, but I think it says, or until somebody replaces them. I don't know. Also, I know you're flat-footed on this as well, Attorney Wolf, but so there'll be a number of them whose term expires May 1st. If there's a meeting before May 19th, are they still the commissioner, or do we have a chance of not reaching quorum because we've got several vacancies?
So they'll still hold their office until
Okay.
their replacement is appointed.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? Trustee Kumar?
Are most of these people reappointments or?
They're all
appointments?
reappointments. These are all reappointments.
So they have been there for years?
They've been there for at least one term, correct?
Okay.
Trustee Alfano?
Thank you. Do we know, we are affirmed that they do want to be reappointed?
Yes, they've all been, yeah.
That was my question.
Yeah, there were
After,
several, there
so-
were a couple that were contacted that did not want to reapply.
Okay.
So all of these people have been contacted. Trustee Kumar?
And how many of these people are here today?
Yeah, everyone that's here for reappointment, could you raise your hand, please? So three of them. Okay. Okay. Okay, so vote on the motion to move the reappointments to date certain of May 19th. Clerk Kornecki?
Okay, trustee Corkery,
No.
trustee Cordova,
No.
trustee Alfano,
No.
trustee Kumar,
No.
trustee Patrick,
No.
trustee Kozar,
Yes.
President Kazone.
No. Okay, so we will keep that on for tonight. Any other amendments? Okay, seeing none, can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented? This is something new that we are instituting tonight on advice of our legal counsel. Trustee Cork? Oh, I'm
Just
sorry,
for
go ahead.
clarification, at the last meeting on March 24th, we approved some revised rules of order and procedure, and part of that was confirming the agenda via the vote. And then after the agenda is approved, it can't be amended unless by another vote
Yeah.
of the village board, so.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So a motion to approve, Trustee Corkery? Okay, a second. Trustee Kumar? Questions, comments? Clerk Kornecki, this is to approve the agenda as amended, or as written.
Yes, trustee Patrick,
Yes.
trustee Alfano,
Yes.
trustee Cordova.
Yes.
Trustee Kumar,
Yes.
trustee Corkery.
Yes.
Trustee Kozar,
Yes.
President Kazone.
Yes. Okay, move on to item 4, public comments on agenda items. Do we have anyone signed up, Clerk Kornecki?
Yes, we do. Tina Constatos, 13C. Hi, thank you. Yes, I wanted to talk about item 13C as I was reading the information in the packet provided. To point out first that I believe it was trustee Kumar who had stated that she would like to see for the last 3 years, the residents who had already out-pocketed the money to go ahead and do these improvements, that we reimburse them for that, and I noticed that that was missing from the packet. So I wanted to address that and ask if it can be placed in there. And then also, I was just a little confused as to why we're voting on just the one suggestion. I thought there was 2 different suggestions that were given, that we wanted to see about covering 100% of it as well as the 50/50. So I didn't think there was 100% of a vote saying the 50/50. So I was a little
Thought we
confused and
had
just
done
asking.
a consensus 50/50. Is that correct, Director Guerra?
That was my notes.
Yeah.
Okay, so the consensus was,
The
it's based off
consensus
the
was 50/50.
consensus. Okay, then the only thing that I have is just re-talking about the last 3 years and the residents who did out-pocket the cost and the possibility of reimbursing them for that.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Okay, anyone else? Public comments on agenda items?
Yes, next Cheryl Tucker, 13, okay.
13B.
Yep, just a second. My biggest question is,
Wait, the time you used
Sorry.
to the first one. were deducted.
Go ahead.
give me 2 seconds? Okay. I got it.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
My question isn't, my understanding is this Phase 3 engineering thing, but I would like some clarification on, it states the improvement for the roadway from sidewalk improvement from Highland between Princeton Avenue to west of Villa Avenue. West to where? Up to Villa Avenue on the west? Are we stopping at Euclid? Where are we stopping going west? There was nothing in there. There was a comment on Euclid on, we're doing drainage and other things in the proposal, but where are we stopping with the resurfacing?
Okay. All right, we can bring that up during discussion on
Thank
that.
you. Yeah.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Okay, next is Joe Amore regarding 13C.
Good evening, Joel Amore, 309 East Maple. So in regard to 13C, I also remember hearing that there was multiple options at the Committee of the Whole for proposals on which plan to choose. And none of the proposals included 100% covering the private side from the box to the residence to the meter. Now, about 10 days ago, a village employee came after contacting, sending a letter. They said that my house was one of the 60 identified in the village that they wanted testing done right away. It's part of the program. So somewhere, somehow, the records show this, that 60 houses need testing. I bought my house in '85. Lead was back then, was not considered something you'd want to have in your house. So I should have been notified then that there was lead in the pipes before I bought the home, but that was a miss. That program didn't exist. But the fact of the matter is that I remember that there was a public comment at the COW. Why hasn't been there an exploration of funds available to reimburse homeowners who had tested positive for the 100% replacement? The fact is that I don't know how much money's in that fund, but if you guys, my house I know was built in the 30s, and so if you've identified 60 houses that need immediate testing, we should at least find out before you vote on this whether there is an option to cover at least the 60 that you've identified previously to possibly have lead, to see if you do, and if it is identified, then the 100% cost should be taken on by the village and not the homeowner. So that's all I had to say about that.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
I also have another comment on 12B, but I'll wait if you see if anybody else on 13C.
Yes, Steve Della Rosa, also 13C.
Good evening, everyone. I'm speaking on 13C as well. It's been mentioned this evening that there was a consensus vote that was taken at the March 24th board meeting, and that consensus ask was taken without the board having the knowledge of how much money was in the capital improvement plan at that time. So if the board did this consensus vote, which I remember, they didn't have the knowledge of how much money was in that fund, which happens to be somewhere between $6 and $7 million for capital improvement, based on the graph that was put up by Mike Guerra during those meetings. So today, I want to basically read an email so I can get it into record here that I sent to the village board members talking about this lead service line replacement plan discussed at this March 10th Committee of the Whole and the March 24th Board meeting. It's my contention, as a village homeowner and resident in Villa Park, we should not be on the hook for 50% of the cost associated with the removal of lead line delivery lines or galvanized lines, which were installed by and approved by the Villa Park Water Commission for water distribution in the village. And this plan up for approval today does not take into consideration the obligations of the village to deliver clean and safe, uncontaminated water for the residents of Villa Park. I support a no vote on today's ordinance resolution until another plan is developed to not place the financial burden upon the residents of Villa Park who have been paying for the delivery of safe water from the village. So that's what I have to offer today, and I thank you for your time.
Okay, thanks, Sue.
Okay, Joe Amore again.
Good evening. I know you guys are voting tonight on accepting the comprehensive plan on item 12B. And I was going through the plan, and I noticed that on page 103, that the section identified as pedestrian system gaps, they showed a map alongside that. And there still has not yet shown the gap of no sidewalks at all, except for a small portion on Elm Street between Euclid and Villa. This was not identified in the 2018 Bike and Pedestrian Master Plan that was expensed by the village. Whoever wrote that plan up, they missed it. We've brought it to the board's attention a number of times, and we were promised that when the next study was done, that would be identified for inclusion, and it is still not in the plan. So the fact of the matter is if you could make a notation somewhere that when this is implemented, Elm Street between Euclid and Villa, no sidewalks with a dog leg in the middle, poorly lit at night, 3 or 4 houses on the very west end on the north side of the street of Elm have sidewalks, and then it just ends. Now, the fact of the matter is that right now, the Bike and Pedestrian Transit Subcommittee is doing a mapping event for sidewalks. It hasn't been completed, but whenever, it's a big project, and we'd like to know that any time that you guys propose improvements based on what the plan identifies, is that you know, normally you have 2 public meetings, but we'd also like to have input from the citizens who volunteer on commissions, no matter what those commissions may be. If they have, a horse in that race, they should be brought into the conversation. So we'd like to just be included. We give up a lot of our own special precious time without pay, and when we bring things to your attention, it should be acted upon. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Okay,
No one else
anyone
signed
else?
up.
Okay, anyone else? Public comments on the agenda items? Okay, item 5, public comments on non-agenda items. Anyone signed up?
I have one person, Samana Siddiqui, wants to talk about the federal library cuts.
Good evening. Thank you so much for hearing me out. A resident of Villa Park for the last 7 years, and I love our library, and I was deeply concerned when I read about federal cuts that are coming to libraries across the U.S., and I wanted to figure out what our village library, how it's going to affect us, and what if the village has a plan for that. So that was my only question. Thank you.
Thank you.
No one else.
That's it. Okay, anyone else? Public comments on non-agenda items? Okay, we will move on to item 6, our proclamations. Okay, the first one is proclaiming April 25th, 2025 as Arbor Day in the Village of Villa Park. And whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed that a special day be set aside for planting trees, to be known as Arbor Day. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed around the world and is celebrated on the last Friday in April in the state of Illinois. And whereas trees can be a solution to combating climate change by reducing the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cutting heating and cooling costs, moderating the temperature, cleaning the air, producing life-giving oxygen, and providing habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our village increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas for the 40th year in a row, Villa Park has been designated as a Tree City USA. And whereas for the 4th year in a row, Villa Park has been designated as a Tree City USA Growth Award. And whereas Villa Park will celebrate Arbor Day with a tree planting ceremony on April 25th, 2025. Now therefore, I, Nick Cazone, Village President of the Village of Villa Park, do hereby proclaim April 25th, 2025 as Arbor Day in the Village of Villa Park. And further, I urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. And as I believe Morton said, we don't plant trees for ourselves, we plant trees for our children. And there will be a tree planting ceremony, 11 o'clock on the 25th at Lufkin Park. What kind of tree, Mike?
Autumn glade.
An autumn,
Maple.
autumn glazed maple. So April 25th, 11 o'clock at Lufkin Park, we will plant a tree.
Red maple.
Okay, our second proclamation is declaring April 22nd, 2025 as Earth Day in the Village of Villa Park. And whereas Earth Day is observed and celebrated on April 22nd, 2025, and whereas Earth Day involves the efforts of many people and organizations for a unified vision to protect our environment and preserve our planet for future generations. And whereas in celebration of Earth Day, we have scheduled events in April and May 2025, one being the Illinois Prairie Path Cleanup and the Villa Park Spring Sweep. And whereas the annual Prairie Path Cleanup will be held on Saturday, April 26th at 9 a.m., beginning at the Villa Park Historical Museum, 220 South Villa Avenue. This effort is in conjunction with the Illinois Prairie Path Corporation in partnership with the Friends of the Great Western Trails, DuPage County, and other organizations. And whereas the Village of Villa Park and its Environmental Concerns Commission focus on the education, betterment, and protection of our environment, the 2025 Villa Park Spring Sweep will be held on Saturday, May 17th, from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Home Avenue for recycling and shredding of disposable and other items. Now therefore, I, Nick Cazone, Village President of Village of Villa Park, do hereby proclaim April 22nd, 2025 as Earth Day in the Village of Villa Park. And further, I urge all citizens to join us on April 26th for the Prairie Path event and also May 17th for 2025 Spring Sweep. And finally, we get to recognize a Hall of Famer from Villa Park. This proclamation recognizing Todd Borchardt as a 2025 inductee into the USBC Windy City Hall of Fame, and he's listed with the Illinois USBC Hall of Fame for superior lifetime performance. Whereas Todd Borchardt was born and raised in Villa Park, his grandparents encouraged his love of bowling, and in 1979 he joined a youth bowling league. And whereas Todd Borchardt began bowling in the ABC USBC in 1984 and has acquired over 50 award scores and is listed on the Illinois USBC Hall of Fame for superior lifetime performance. And whereas Todd has 29 300-point games, 7 299-point games, and 3 298-point games. He holds 11 800-point series scores. His highest series was 843 in 2010, and he holds a high average award of 230. Whereas on March 23rd, 2025, Todd Borchardt was inducted into the USBC Windy City Hall of Fame. Now therefore, I, Nick Cazone, President of Villa Park, do hereby proclaim and recognize Todd Borchardt as a 2025 inductee into the USBC Windy City Hall of Fame and is listing with the Illinois USBC Hall of Fame for superior lifetime performance. And congratulations, Todd. Why don't you come on up?
Thank you very much. The last couple of weeks have been very rewarding and very humbling. You know, you put a lot of time into a sport you dedicate your life to. I started in '79, which ironically is when Villa Park Bowl collapsed. So I got to start at Stardust Bowl. But that's where it began. I've met some great people along the way. I got coached by people that knew Carmen Salvino. My good friend Al Ostrowski was a very successful coach at Fenton, but three state teams to the finals and championships. But it's just been a little overwhelming the last couple of weeks. You enjoy it, you take it in, but it's you realize one thing: with your lifetime performance, you're getting pretty old. So, gotta admit that. So it's time's catching me. But I do want to say one thing I'm pretty happy about now. When I went to Willowbrook High School, there was no program for bowling at all. I had to take it on my own. I had to go to Stardust, find my own way to find it. But now I see it. A couple of my friends help coach other high schools, and it allows you to stay around your friends. And you can stay around. You don't have to be separated. I got separated from my friends. That kind of hurt me a little bit, but I followed what I wanted to. But now these kids can be around, be recognized. Maybe one of these kids can take the step I didn't take. I could have maybe gone that way, but it's a lot of commitment. But maybe one of these kids can do it, and hopefully they see this and realize bowling doesn't end at high school, and it just continues on. So it can be a lifetime sport for people. So I want to thank all you guys. I appreciate this. Being recognized by your peers is one thing, but coming back to your hometown, I'm not coming back. I live here. I'm around here. But being recognized by my town where I went to high school, it's very rewarding. So I thank you guys all very much.
Okay.
So
Thanks.
thank you.
Todd, you want to come up? We'll take a picture with the board.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hold it up. What the heck? Sure.
There's no Riley. Oh, yeah, we're connected. Matt.
Yeah, but some of them it's. When is this over?
Okay. Okay, item 7, presentations. I believe we don't have any. Okay, item 8, our appointments of commissions. Okay, the approval of the reappointment of the following commissioners. John Drogas, the Economic Development Commission, for a term until April 30th, 2028. Lori Lococo, Historical Preservation Commission, for a term until April 30th, 2028. Commissioner Joseph D'Antonis, Historical Preservation Commission, for a term until April 30th, 2028. Joel Maury, Environmental Concerns Commission, for a term until April 30th, 2028. Marianne Greco, Environmental Concerns Commission, for a term until April 30th, 2028. Lynn Smith, Environmental Concerns Commission, for a term until April 30th, 2028. Commissioner Stephen Tom King, Video Production Commission, for a term until April 30th, 2028. And Chris Aiello, Police Pension Fund Board, for a term until April 30th, 2027. And we have a motion for the reappointments. Trustee Kumar, a second. Trustee Corkery? Okay, questions or comments? Trustee Kumar?
I would just like to say I greatly value the service that all the commissioners put and all the effort that they put into giving us the proper information that we need to make concise and good decisions on this board. And as we move to reappoint you, we thank you for your service in advance. And that's all I have to say.
Okay, thanks. Trustee Alfano?
Yes, thank you. I also would like to thank our commissioners for stepping up again for another term. I know that when you volunteer for whatever your passion is, it still does take you away from other obligations and other commitments that you might make. So thank you very much for making Villa Park one of your commitments. We do value that.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else? Trustee Kozar?
So I too value the volunteer time that it takes for commissioners, but I'm going to restate my objection that I think that it should be the new incoming president that makes appointments for the next 3 years and not the outgoing president that makes appointments for the next 3 years. There's no harm done in waiting till the 19th. The commissioners continue to stay on their commissions. They continue to vote and advise. This is the role for the new president. So I'd like to restate my motion to postpone this to 5/19, all the commissioners.
Okay, we have a motion to postpone until May 19th. We have a second. Do we have a second for the motion? Okay, seeing none. Any other questions or comments? Trustee Cordova?
No, just a quick thank you. I've spent 8 years on Parks and Rec. I see some of the amount of time that you guys have put into this. So just a thank you in general for your time and your commitment, and more importantly, your opinions and your thoughts. So just a wonderful thank you.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Patrick?
Thank you. I also would like to reiterate what our fellow board members are saying here. Thank you for your time and commitment. A lot of us here did start off on commissions as well. It's a very valuable asset to our community. Moving forward, I want to reiterate the importance of our commissions to the board. And with that being said, I hope that we continue with the tradition that we started back up again by having a celebration at the end of the year for our commissions and our commissioners, so that way we can all celebrate together the hard work that we've put in for Villa Park.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Kumar?
I'm hoping that also, with what Trustee Patrick said, that we continue the celebration and that it's a yearly thing. It is good to get together. I got to know a lot of the commissioners during that celebration. Just the connection is good. We want to listen to what you have to say, and we want to thank you for what you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else? Hey, Clerk Kornacki, please.
Okay, Trustee Patrick?
Yes.
Trustee Kumar?
Yes.
Trustee Alfano?
Yes.
Trustee Kozar?
No.
Trustee Cordova?
Yes.
Trustee Corkery?
Yes.
President Casson?
Yes. Okay, item 9 is consent agenda. Item A is bill listings for the weeks of March 24th, 2025, in the amount of $626,853.28, and March 31st, 2025, in the amount of $1,193,485.53. Item B is approval of the minutes of the Village Board of Trustees meeting held on March 24th, 2025. Item C is an ordinance of the Village of Villa Park to approve and authorize the acceptance and execution of certain plats of easement for the Jackson Pond Improvement Stormwater Management Project. This ordinance authorizes the president and village clerk to execute the attached plats of easement and states that it has been determined that it is necessary and in the public interest that the village accept and execute such as easements. Public Works staff has recommended acceptance of these private property utility easements in the Jackson Area Improvement Project. And do we have a motion for the consent agenda? Trustee Cordova? We have a second. Trustee Corkery? Questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, Clerk Kornacki, please.
Trustee Kumar?
Yes.
Trustee Kozar?
Yes.
Trustee Cordova?
Yes.
Trustee Corkery?
Yes.
Trustee Alfano?
Yes.
Trustee Patrick?
Yes.
President Kazone?
Yes. Okay, item 12 are ordinances. Item 12A is an ordinance of the Village of Villa Park, Illinois, granting a variation from the interior side yard setback and street side setback requirements for the property commonly known as 749 North Harvard Avenue, Villa Park, Illinois. Manager Harline.
This ordinance would approve petition PZ 2503, a request for a variation to allow a reduced minimum side yard setback of 3 feet from the required 10 feet, and a reduced minimum street side setback of 6 feet from the required 35 feet. The petitioner is seeking approval of a variation from Table 3-2 of Article 3, Section 3.2, Lot and Building Regulations of the zoning ordinance. The Planning and Zoning Commission held a public hearing on March 13, 2025, where they recommended approval of the request by a vote of 7-0. And our Community Economic Development Director, Mark McLaughlin, is here if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you. Okay, do we have a motion for the ordinance?
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Cordova, sorry. Do we have a second? Trustee Alfano?
I'll second.
Questions, comments? For the public knowledge, this is an addition to a commercial industrial building. Basically the same width of the building, it's just extending it out. It's legal non-conforming right now. The original building does not have enough setback, but the addition is the same width as the original building, so it went through planning and zoning pretty quickly. Okay, Clerk Kornecki, please.
Okay, Trustee Kumar?
Yes.
Trustee Patrick?
Yes.
Trustee Corkery?
Yes.
Trustee Kozar?
Yes.
Trustee Alfano?
Yes.
Trustee Cordova?
Yes.
President Kazone?
Yes. Okay, item 12B is an ordinance adopting a 2025 comprehensive plan for the present and future development and redevelopment of the Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois. Manager Harline.
By passage of this ordinance, the Board of Trustees of the Village of Villa Park would hereby formally adopt the 2025 comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan is for the present and future development or redevelopment of the Village of Villa Park. Staff recommends approval, and we have a presentation here. Director McLaughlin is at the dais, and we also have representatives here from our consultant on this project, Housel Levine.
Okay. Okay, do we have a motion for the ordinance? Trustee Patrick?
Mr. President, I'd like to make that motion.
Okay, we have a second. Trustee Kumar? Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll go through the presentation, and then hopefully it will answer any questions. And if there are questions, we can answer them after.
Good evening. I'm with Josh Coons from House Levine Associates, our firm that we've been working with on this project for the last handful of years at this point. He's going to do an overview of the entire planning process. As you can see in my memo, all of the public input and all the touch points and how this made a community plan really this comprehensive plan. Additionally, tonight we do have update revision draft 4-14 based on the public comment this morning. Not this morning, this evening. So that's already reflected in the plan that we can show you at the end. But I'm going to turn over to Josh, and you'll see what I was talking about in a second.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you to Village President and the board for having me here tonight. Make sure that works. It is really a pleasure to be here after what's been a really strong, robust, and enjoyable process working with village leadership, Planning and Zoning Commission, great relationship working with staff, and it really has been a rewarding process, and I think the document really reflects that. I'm just going to touch on a few high-level points, and then I'm available for any questions. I want to recap the process and then just give you a little orientation to the draft plan document. So I think this slide was probably in the presentation way back when we first started this, but I just want to recap it a little. These are some of the reasons that a municipality does a comprehensive plan. So first and foremost, you want to tell the Villa Park story. You want to share its vision for land use, growth, and development. You use it to evaluate and inform development proposals, whether you're a planning and zoning commissioner or a trustee, as you're looking at things that are going to come out of the ground in your community. Sets the foundation for the regulatory framework. So the comprehensive plan is a policy document. It's the should the should statements, not the shall statements. What should the village be doing? Where is it going to grow long-term? And then you would use your zoning code to implement some of those recommendations. A good comprehensive plan recognizes that no community is an island. You're pretty much landlocked here in Villa Park, so you do need to coordinate outside of your municipal borders with the county, with your neighboring municipalities. A good comprehensive plan can help set the tone for the CIP and your annual budgeting. So if there's an actionable implementation matrix at the back end of the comprehensive plan, that can help you make those decisions, how you're going to allocate public funds with regards to land use and development over the coming couple decades. A comprehensive plan is broad, it's village-wide, so it can set the stage for more detailed, specific future studies, whether it might be a bike master plan or a stormwater study or something like that. The comprehensive plan can have some toehold language there as you might want to dig into some of those more specific studies that you may uncover as you go along in the next couple of decades. And then lastly, these comprehensive plans these days really do inform and educate the community. They're not some dusty document with a land use map tucked at the back anymore that sits on the planner's shelf. They live on the village website. They're accessible to all. The community can reference them. They're written in plain English, easy to understand with maps and graphics that anyone can sort of pick up and flip through. You don't have to be a land use lawyer or an urban planner to pick up and understand the community's comprehensive plan. I won't go through all of these, but there's several Illinois compiled statutes that set the stage for why municipalities should and can do comprehensive plans. So one I'll point out here is that the plan, again, is a policy document. It's advisory there in bullet 2. It doesn't regulate the control of property, but it sets the stage for the zoning code, which regulates property. Another one down there at the bottom, the plan must be publicly available. So like I said, you know, maybe historically would have to go to the library and check out a copy of the plan, or go to Village Hall and check out a copy of the plan. Now they live on the website, and not only publicly available, but publicly understandable. The Plan Commission is charged with carrying forward and monitoring the activity of the comprehensive plan, and I'm happy to say that your PZC helped shepherd this process throughout all along the way. So we had numerous checkpoints with them to make sure that we were hitting the mark. And then lastly, this doesn't totally apply here, but if you were to be receiving state funding for a comprehensive plan, then the statutes do identify the sections that must be in the document. And this plan does meet each and every one of these state statutes and requirements as well. So I also showed you this back when we started, and I'm happy to say that we've established where we are today with the existing conditions report. We defined where we wanted to go with the visioning and goal setting process, and we finally are at the roadmap. How are we going to get there? What are the things that the village can actually do to move the needle on some of these important projects and areas of the community? We had overall a very robust and engaged process. When you tally it all up, it's over 900 points of engagement across the various in-person activities and the online tools that we deployed. So a nice level of participation, including all the way up to the very end when we had about 30 plus attendees at the final second round open house right before the PZC meeting last time we were out here. So what you have ultimately now, it's all those other things, but in its essence, the way that we really like to communicate what a comprehensive plan is. It's a foundation for decision making. So it's not a crystal ball. It's not going to have every answer, but it can help inform those tough decisions. It can act as a guiding document that transcends commissioner turnover, new board members, staff change. This document can sort of continue to guide the village over the next several years as those things happen, like they do in any community. Overall, the plan is divided into 6 chapters: introduction, community vision, land use and development, transportation and mobility, community facilities and public infrastructure, and implementation. And you can map every one of these sections back to those Illinois required sections. And I'm just going to go through them very briefly. So In our introduction, we're establishing what is the comprehensive plan, why are we doing this, what was the process, how did we get here to this document, what was the public input, sets out the plan organization, discusses the community outreach, establishes the regional setting, maps back to your previous plans and studies and reports, how are those incorporated into this document, how does it reference them, the village's landscape of planning documents, and a demographic snapshot. And this is just a few of those key pages. So you can see we cover the planning process, how to use the plan, identify what these community quotes are, a regional settings map, and a snapshot of demographics, just a few of those key pages. The centerpiece of the plan, the community vision statement, an aspirational vision, but something that's lofty and aspirational. I think I've said before that if we were to stop at the vision statement, everybody should rightfully be asking, okay, sounds great, we can all get behind this, sounds good, we agree this is where we want Villa Park to go, how are we going to get there? So that's kind of what the vision statement should be saying. Or there's a lot that we're already doing, how are we going to continue to do this over the coming decades? Beneath the vision statement, there's a set of goals that are actionable and that the community can work toward, with the understanding that the village is generally taking the lead on working toward those goals. And you can see here is the vision statement, a set of goals. We usually have this kind of as a centerpiece, so you can see this page is designed a little bit different to stand out in the document. It's an important part of the overall comprehensive plan. The land use and development chapter, we set the stage for land use. We look at some of the things like the existing land use map where we did a program of field work and land use assessment. We identified opportunities for growth. The center map of the plan is the future land use map. I'll show you that in just a second. We have a housing and areas and neighborhoods framework, an economic development framework, and then a set of 6 sub-areas for some key areas of the village that need a little more detailed planning. One thing that I'd like to just point out, sometimes people see this future land use map and they think it's a zoning map. There are differences between those 2 different maps. So a land use framework or a future land use map, again, identifies that desired future land use pattern for the village. Where would we like to grow? Where would we like to see new development? What areas should be preserved and maintained? A zoning map actually regulates the specific uses on a parcel, height, setback, parking, signs, landscaping. That is regulatory. That's a different map than what's in this document. But you may tweak your zoning code as you start to implement your plan. So they do work together for implementation. You can see here, a little hard to see on the screen here, but the future land use map is in the top right, and then bottom left we have the housing and neighborhoods framework and the economic development framework. So these maps all sort of fit together and tell the story of these different aspects. Again, not every comprehensive plan has this. This is where we drilled down a little bit deeper on some specific areas. We did what we would call detailed planning for the North Avenue corridor and the St. Charles Road corridor here on the screen. Each one of these sub-areas has what we would call a detailed framework. So we're, instead of being at the 20,000 foot level and looking at all of Villa Park at once, we're looking at this specific corridor. We're looking at things like pedestrian crossings, landscaping, buffering, screening, redevelopment sites. So really imagining what this corridor could look like as things happen over the next couple of years. And for each of the sub-areas, you'll also see a 3D model of a catalyst site. This is a site that, if it were to redevelop, could have sort of a catalytic effect on the corridor or the sub-area. And we show not architectural renderings, not photorealistic images, but a sort of a blocky model to give an idea of what, if that were to change, what could that development potentially look like. And they're rendered in land use colors, so it's clear that they're conceptual. We did the same for the Roosevelt Road corridor, the Uptown District around the Metro Station, Old Town District, and the historic Ardmore District. For transportation and mobility, we worked closely with KLOA, a trusted partner of ours, local civil engineering firm. They do a great job digging deep into the transportation network, the roadway network, active transportation, so your bike and pedestrian network, And you'll see, again, policies, clearly bulleted recommendations that the village can work toward. Likewise, community facilities and infrastructure, so village services, who are we working with, parks and recreation, community character and identity. And this chapter is all about those services and facilities that make the village run. And then certainly, last but not least, you don't want this plan to sit on a shelf. You want it to be used. The implementation strategy is all about what are the funding sources, how are we going to find those precious public dollars, who are we going to work with when we look outside our borders, in our municipal boundary, inside the municipal boundary. What are we actually going to do, and how are we going to work on all of this? And it's paired with, you can see in the bottom right here, what we would call an action matrix. So we take every recommendation, every should statement in the comprehensive plan, we distill it down to its essential action or set of actions, and pair it with partners and priorities so that you can almost use that as a checklist or an index of the whole plan to kind of see how are we making progress, a couple years out, what are some things we may need to tweak, re-examine. It almost is like the cliff notes to the overall plan document. So I would like to say thank you. This, like I mentioned, this has been a really rewarding process. Our firm is very proud of the work here, and it really couldn't have turned out so well without a strong working relationship with you all and with staff. And I do appreciate the opportunity we've had to work with you here. So I am available for any questions if you have them.
Thank you. Yeah, I like that. You guys did a great job, and with community development and with the Planning and Zoning Commission, Jason Jarrett, he's the head of that commission. I think you guys did a great job. I know you've been working on this for a long time, so it's a long time coming. You guys did a very excellent job getting this together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, questions from the board? Okay, did a great job. No
Thank you.
questions.
Appreciate it.
Trustee Kumar.
And not really for him, there's a few updates that might, that you said are already in.
Yeah.
The new plan, the version of the plan.
That's correct, and I wanted to show you this before you voted. So this
Yeah.
is adoption draft 4/14/25, which takes into consideration the last of the public comment that we received, which shows that right there. Those red lines were not in the draft that you have on the agenda, but these red lines are on the draft that you guys will be voting on. Staff is giving you draft 4/14. That is the only change. So it is, we discussed, and it is an area that is appropriate for extending that sidewalk. It had just never been on any staff's radar before, but per Joe Moore's comments, it is a valuable connection. So.
Yeah, go ahead.
I also have a question about floodplaining. Where is that inside this whole document? Anything
Sure.
to do with flood?
So floodplain is a FEMA regulation. We do not have that on this document. That is a layer that we would put over any of this information. We don't need to map the floodplain within a comp plan.
Okay.
Mark, we did show the floodplains in the existing conditions memorandum and took, as we considered the housing and neighborhoods and future land use map, we took that into account.
Into account. I just want to make sure that it's somewhere in the
Supported.
process.
Yep.
Floods have been an issue in this neighborhood for some time now, so just making sure that as we move in the future, that issue is at least embedded somewhere within our plan.
Yeah. It's used as a planning tool, but not recreate, because floodplain can actually change without even telling us, so we don't map it in our doc. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Clerk Konecki, please.
I do have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Trustee Alfano.
So I'm wondering if there's any value to postponing this vote maybe until the next meeting or until we have coffee with the board? Because we did see just today, somebody come up and mention that we have something that needs to be maybe edited or discussed. I'm wondering if anybody else feels that there's some value in that on the board. That's just my question for the board.
I don't know, do you have a comment on that?
I do. We did have a robust public input, 2 open houses, multiple online comments. And Joe had just said, if he had seen it earlier, he would have came to me. We do have to stop asking
Yeah.
at some point, we are geared up and ready to roll now. We're pretty happy with this. And, we'd
Okay.
like to put this to bed, honestly.
I'd like to know what the board feels.
Yeah,
that way
that's
about
just where I'm
that.
at.
Thank
honestly.
you.
You're welcome.
Trustee Kumar.
I'm in favor of waiting one more meeting. We waited this long. If something is gonna come up, because I would rather not make a solid, because we're gonna use it for the next 10 years. Any of these documents are very long-term, so that one extra meeting, in my opinion, will not make that much of a difference. Is that going to affect any, I mean, I'm not proposing that there's gonna be vast changes, it's just our vote that's changing necessarily.
Okay. Trustee Corkery.
I think the public has had ample time to give input on this.
Trustee Cordova.
Yeah, I would agree. You guys were talking about 900 points of contact. I don't know if you want to talk through that, just to kind of give us an idea, but I feel as though we've had a lot of time for this. I've been excited about this for a long time, so I'm ready to go now. But yeah, if you can talk about just the 900 points, I think that's a very important piece to this, on what that means.
Yeah.
900 contact points.
Yeah, so specifically it did say 900 points, understanding that there may be some people who participated in everything, or maybe some people came out just for one particular thing or took the survey.
There you go.
So the community survey, very good turnout online, 607, that is 671 individual people who took it. I will say, we don't track IP addresses or anything, but there, you can see there's no like groups of the same responses or anything. So that's a great turnout. Map.social was an online tool where people from home could participate, drop pins and points. So 88 points were dropped on Map.social. That is a little bit more of a barrier. Not everybody wants to participate in that way, but and I do forget the number of maps, but I could bring that back to you and let you know. So across a certain number of participants, they dropped 88 points on the map. In-person activities, we had a village department heads workshop, planning and zoning commission workshop to kick off the process, a business workshop, a series of key stakeholder interviews and conversations, a community visioning workshop, a community open house. That one should be up in the online one, but we had an online comment box, the equivalent of the open house comment box, where people could drop a comment online, very simple one question survey. And then a second community open house and a few check-ins with the PZC along the way that are not listed here in this list. So no single one of the in-person activities stands out as huge, but when you take them all collectively, we were able to get a lot of perspective, even right up to the end, or the open house number 2. We had a lot of good conversations here in this room behind us, and we're able to address one sort of additional run of comments and things that only made the plan stronger. So there's no right number that we shoot for. We see different levels of participation in projects all over, but I would say that this is a pretty healthy number. You always want the most participation possible, but when you start having 900 plus points of feedback, you really can start to tease out some common threads, and we definitely had that here.
Can I? I don't see it up here, but and maybe I'm missing where it's put in here, but there were some small groups that, like I think some of our commissions, and I know the Kiwanis group got together and did a little workshop with some of the key questions. Is that in addition to I'm trying to remember what those were called. You know, they're like
to check with staff on that, but
they weren't focus groups per se that they're. Yeah.
Sort of do-it-yourself workshops.
That's
that
a
were
do-it-yourself
conducted.
workshops, yeah.
And I just don't have those in the list there, but they're tallied in the overall total.
Okay.
So, yeah. It was another opportunity, we call it the 4-question exercise, where we run through a set of 4 questions, and we had the opportunity available to any group that wanted to conduct that themselves as well.
I found that, I enjoyed that process, and I thought that was a really good addition to it.
Sorry. Trustee Patrick?
Thank you. I'm not saying that you guys didn't do your due diligence with public outreach. This is really good, and this is something that I've been trying to promote for a while now. A good comprehensive plan is a good roadmap forward for our future. However, I do have two other trustees on the end here requesting that this would be relevant for them to at least have some more time. 2 more weeks is not that big of a deal. So I would also be in favor of pushing this 2 more weeks, and I would like to make the motion that we push this to our next city meeting, which would be April
28.
28th.
Okay, we have a motion to delay the vote until April 28th. Do we have a second for that vote? Trustee Alfano? Okay, questions or comments? Clerk Janicki?
Okay, trustee Corkery,
No.
trustee Kumar,
Yes.
trustee Cordova,
No.
trustee Patrick,
Yes.
trustee Kozar,
Yes.
trustee Alfano,
Yes.
and President Kazone.
I say no, but that passes, so we will delay the vote until the 28th. So if there are any final comments anyone would like to make, get them to our Community Development Department. Okay, item 12C is an ordinance reaffirming and ratifying the vacation of certain rights-of-way within the Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois, as previously approved by ordinance 4465 and ordinance number 4467. Manager Harlan.
This ordinance hereby reaffirms and ratifies the vacation of land by the Village of Villa Park previously approved under ordinance 4465 and 4467 by the required supermajority of 3/4 of the trustees. There were not sufficient trustees in attendance, and so even though they were, I believe, both unanimously supported, we need 6 votes in favor. Is that correct? For 3/4? Anyway, I believe the staff recommends passage of this ordinance with a 3/4 majority.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to say anything?
Just that this vote is contingent upon the vote of the trustees. So even though the president can vote, the supermajority has to come from the trustees. So 5 of the 6 trustees have had to vote in favor. And because only 3 or 4 trustees were at the meeting, as Manager Harline said, it was unanimously approved, but the amount of trustees that were at the meeting wasn't sufficient to approve it under the statutory supermajority requirements.
Thank you.
Getting old, memory's failing.
Okay, so we have a motion for the ordinance. Trustee Cordova, we have a second. Trustee Kumar, any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, Clerk Garnicki, please.
Okay, trustee Alfano,
Yes.
trustee Kozar,
Yes.
trustee Cordova,
Yes.
trustee Corkery,
Yes.
trustee Kumar,
Yes.
trustee Patrick,
Yes.
President Kazone.
Yes, so that passes by a supermajority. Okay, item 13A, resolutions. Resolution of the Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois, approving an engineering services agreement with Civil Tech Engineering, Inc. of Itasca, Illinois, for design engineering services of the Park Boulevard improvements in an amount not to exceed $77,344. Manager Harline.
The following resolution would authorize the village president to enter into an engineering services agreement with Civil Tech Engineering of Itasca, Illinois for the design engineering services of the Park Boulevard improvements in the amount not to exceed $77,344. The Park Boulevard improvements proposes a roadway and sidewalk improvements to Park Boulevard between Ardmore and Cornell Avenue. Staff recommends approval of the resolution.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion for the resolution. Trustee Cordova? We have a second. Trustee Corkery? Okay, questions or comments? Trustee Patrick?
Would these plans include ADA accessibility for businesses that are along Park Boulevard across from the Prairie Path?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
We were looking at, we had a few complaints, and we started looking at the sidewalks and the parking stalls are not compliant, so this will be a total redesign to make sure that we have compliant sidewalks and parking stalls, or enough parking stalls in the parking, in the right-of-way.
That includes like a wheelchair ramp or a ramp from the parking to the sidewalk?
Correct,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, Clerk Kornicki, please.
Okay, trustee Kozar,
Yes.
trustee Alfano,
Yes.
trustee Cordova,
Yes.
trustee Kumar,
Yes.
trustee Corkery.
Yes.
Trustee Patrick.
Yes.
President Casone.
Yes. Okay, item 13B is a resolution of the Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois, approving an engineering services agreement with Trans System Corporation of Schaumburg, Illinois, for Phase 2 engineering of the Highland Avenue resurfacing in an amount not to exceed $56,744. Manager Harline.
The following resolution would authorize the village president to enter into an engineering service agreement with Trans Systems Corporation of Schaumburg, Illinois for Phase 2 engineering of the Highland Avenue resurfacing in an amount not to exceed $56,744. The Highland Avenue resurfacing proposes a roadway and sidewalk improvements to Highland Avenue between Princeton Avenue and a point west of Villa Avenue. Anyway, staff recommends approval of the resolution. Director Guerra is here to answer questions and maybe make a quick.
Okay.
I apologize for that. That's where AI failed and my brain put in the words that are supposed to be there. That is, we're looking at resurfacing Highland Avenue from Princeton west up to Villa. So it would stop at Villa, and that's, the wording was supposed to say, west up to Villa. So we'll be from Princeton to Villa with road resurfacing and spot repairs on sidewalk.
Thank you. Okay, do we have a motion for the resolution? Trustee Kumar, second. Trustee Alfano. Questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, Clerk Kornicki, please.
Okay, trustee Patrick.
Yes.
Trustee Corkery.
Yes.
Trustee Kumar.
Yes.
Trustee Kozar.
Yes.
Trustee Alfano.
Yes.
Trustee Cordova.
Yes.
President Casone.
Yes.
Bless you.
Item 13C is a resolution adopting a lead line replacement program for the Village of Villa Park. Manager Harline.
With this resolution, the Board of Trustees would adopt and approve the proposed lead service line replacement program for the private portion of the water service line in the village. This program will provide financial assistance to assist residents with replacing lead services or galvanized services as required by the Environmental Protection Agency. The program incorporates the discussion and direction given to staff at the March 10 Committee of the Whole and March 24th Village Board meeting. Staff recommends approval of the resolution. Director Guerra is here to answer questions, including some of those that were posed during the comments from residents.
Okay, thank you. Okay, do we have a motion for the resolution? Trustee Kumar, we have a second. Trustee Corkery. I'd like to clear up one thing that our village attorney had brought up when we were talking about the board decision at the March meeting. It was not a consensus, it was a straw poll. So difference in the two. So the straw poll was basically in favor of the 50-50 by the board. Okay. Any questions or comments on the resolution? Trustee Cordova.
There was a question, I can't remember which one was, if we do the 50-50, there was an estimate on how much it would cost, I believe, 3 million? The number was floating. One of the questions I had was where, number one, do we have that kind of allocated right now? And then the second piece is, if we don't, where would we have to pull those funds from?
Can I, you mean if we're going for 100% or for the 50-50? Okay.
With the estimated number of homes
Okay.
that were in there.
Okay.
Sorry, I should have popped you with that earlier so you could have it ready.
So the option for 50-50, based on the memo, with a credit up to 5,000, would, excuse me, the total cost would be about $1.7 million for the private side. Obviously, there's two sides. There's the public side and the private side. Our code is defined in most villages up here. The public side is from the main up to what's called the curb box or the B box, depending how you want to turn it, which is the valve that regulates the line. And from there into the house is the private side. We have colder weather, so the meters are always inside the house versus some southern states where meters are out in the front yard. So that was about I have 1.65. So do we have that money? as was mentioned, we have about $4 million in reserves, but we are spending down $2 million of that this year with projects. One project's already been allocated with the tower painting, and we do have bids opening on North Harvard Avenue tomorrow, so we're hopeful for good bids, but that's being self-funded with internal funds. The idea would be is we spread that cost over the 10 years to comply with the federal regulations of that all lines must be replaced within 10 years. And so that would be an allocation of about $165,000 a year or, in our budget. So the initial thought is looking at what we've made now on interest, which was about $200,000, that would be self-funding it off of interest made on our reserves in the fund. So we wouldn't have to go into rate increases. However, we don't know what the future holds, and so we'd have to evaluate the rates as we move forward, because we do have other infrastructure improvements in the water system, needing new mains, replacing everyday replacements, water main breaks, those sort of things. So that was the initial thought, was to utilize that interest that we garner on a yearly basis to fund the program on a yearly basis. That being said, we do have scenarios where we could pull a little bit of money from other accounts. We do have the utility sales tax, or the additional sales tax that is dedicated to infrastructure improvements, which is 0.5% goes to streets, half goes to streets and half go to the general, but that general covers wastewater, stormwater, and water and roadway if needed. So it's a general pot. So there's ways that we can fund it, and the goal is not to look at raising rates to cover the cost.
And then just as far as the execution of it, if we do, would we want to kind of front load it? I mean, as opposed to just waiting for 10 years, if I'm, if my house is identified as a lead line, I'd probably want to get it done pretty soon. So as we start thinking about giving options for testing, either by, your team or their self, we went through it. If we start identifying a fair amount that's going to push us over that 200, we would just kind of pull from current, right? Okay.
Correct, yeah, we'd have to pull, there'd have to be some sort of cap, but we also understand with the 50/50, there's also a cost to the residents. So it's their ability to also fund is one of the other factors in that.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Trustee Kumar.
In a previous experience, when you looked at a road or you had this kind of experience and you tested for lead lines, what was the percentage of things that you thought would end up being a line that needed full replacement?
So we've kept pretty good records from about 2018 on, is when we started looking at those, and it's hit or miss. Obviously, it's hit or miss because of the factor of the age. It kind of factors into the areas that we expect. The older centralized portion of our community was built 20s, 30s. Those locations had a higher percentage, versus areas that were built on the fringes that were built at the later time frames, where lead was starting to be phased out or was phased out. So case in point, the two water main projects that we had on the north side for Michigan and Iowa, we experienced no lead lines. In some other portions of town, like we're experiencing in Wisconsin right now, I believe we thought it was around, I'm trying to think of the percentages. I know we have about 18, but we have up to 28 identified based on our anticipated locations there. So we kind of have predictors based on the age of the infrastructure and ground, but it's not inclusive because we didn't always keep track of the services. We kept track of the mains, we kept track of the valves, we kept track of the hydrants. Services were kind of the one-offs, and now we are keeping track of all those. So I would say it all depends on the neighborhood and the age of the infrastructure that we're doing the repairs on.
And you never know, because when you did Maple, there were a lot more than you had anticipated.
Correct. Maple was the project that straddled the new legislation, so we were always replacing lead services on the private side as we encountered them, and then notified, or we should have been notifying the private side. And that's what we're doing now, where now it needs to come out, so this is the intent of this program, is to help residents get it out of the private side. But yeah, Maple area, that one was a little bit more sporadic, where we encountered some that we weren't expecting, and then areas that we had expected we did not encounter.
Trustee Kumar.
So the 60 houses that someone talked about that are being assessed in this year or whatever, these are houses that you think have lead. Is that it? And what do you expect as a percentage of those that'll show up?
So overall, what we've known now is we have like 4.5% of known locations.
Okay.
Of the ones that we actually have hard evidence, whether that being through construction records or through in-home inspections, and it's 4.5%. The biggest unknown is the private side because those are different. So we kind of expect, though, if you have lead probably on your private side, it's likely on the public side unless we've done improvements to that area, because that's the age, the time frame that that material is being used. So we kind of extrapolate that over, but as part as we moving forward with the master plan that we plan to update, we would be going and hydro excavating all the service lines to begin getting a hard inventory of all the locations. So for this point of this exercise, I used 4.5% because that was a known quantity in the village.
And is there any grant opportunities out there for private side replacement?
So all the grant opportunities I know of are for public entities, and that would be inclusive. There is IEPA loans, but they're all competitive. We did put in funding nomination, which is the first step in that process, to the IEPA this year for that. But I say that is, a lot of that funding comes from the feds, and I have unknown what to expect in the upcoming years for any federal funding. And to speak to one other question, there was, the board did give the advice to look back 3 years and to offer that. That is being included. I didn't write it into the program, and I forgot to mention that to Melissa to put in the ordinance, but we have 37 permits that have occurred over the last 3 years. Majority of them are upgrades. They were new home constructions. They've added additions, which wouldn't fall into this program. I know of 3, but it might be up to 5 or 6. My plan is just to reach out to them individually and notify them that this plan has been enacted and they're eligible for this program if they wish to seek reimbursement. I've had conversations with one gentleman, knowing that this was coming forward.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Okay, any other, Trustee Patrick?
Thank you. Earlier today in public comments before the meeting, we had a couple of residents express that they might want this postponed because we might not have had accurate or complete information. I was just wondering if Joe and Steve, if you could just reiterate kind of what you said briefly so that way I know where you're coming from on that.
You come up here, Joe.
So I attended the COW on this, and I remember 3 proposals being put out. I don't have them at hand. And none of the 3 offered an option of 100% reimbursement to, on the private side. So afterwards, I had heard that there may be money available in another fund. If it's turned out that there's a limited amount of private side replacements, let's just get those done. And that it wasn't even considered on the vote. There was only a vote of 3.
Okay.
So that was my concern.
Thank you. Director Guerra, to my recollection, I thought we did include that in one of those as well, but did we get numbers for what that would cost us?
Yes, through the PowerPoint presentation, which I guess I can transfer it.
You don't have to, you could.
But yes, the 3 options was to do nothing, essentially, where the homeowner pays 100%. And the village would not participate. The second option was for the village to pay 100%. And on the estimated costs of $6,000 to $10,000, which we received in bids, for the private side, that would cost in the neighborhood of $2 to $3 million. And then the third option was the 50% or 75% up to 5,000. Those were kind of A and B. And then we looked at 3.5%, or sorry, 3,500 or 5,000, and that estimated in the 1.65 per million. Those were the 3 options in the COW, and then those were presented, and then the memo presented to the board on the March 22nd, where we kind of just looked at 100% versus the 50 up to $5,000 cap, because that was kind of the consensus from the board was either 100% or participation up to 5,000.
Okay, thank you. And then, Steve, I believe that you said that there was some information that we might not have gotten as a board?
Yeah, the amount of money that was in the capital improvement plan for the water department, that figure wasn't known at the time of the 3 presentations, I believe. And that's the number that I said that is now somewhere between $5 and $7 million based on what my memory serves me with in terms of how much money is in the capital improvement plan.
Thank you.
I can try to pull it up. So we have, I think the numbers Mr. LaRosa was talking about is in the memo last year. It showed a revenue, get to it, sorry, of approximately $7 million, because we received reimbursement of 1.2 for the 2 projects on Michigan and Iowa. But when we take out the expenses, that dropped us to our fund balance of, not dropped us, it built our fund balance to 4.4 million. But that 4.4 is getting spent down this year with the tower painting that's been approved, and then the North Harvard Avenue improvements, which we're anticipating being in the over $1 million range.
Okay.
So that's where we kind of knock out 2 million. We do have another fund, but like I said, that's, I was trying to look that up in our budget. I believe our 64 fund, which is our capital improvement fund, that's the sales tax. Chuck can correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to say that's in the neighborhood of $3 to $4 million in revenue bonds. But like I said, we split that across also wastewater projects, stormwater projects, water projects to help offset, so we're not just using enterprise funds to make some of those costly improvements, so that we're not just eating all the money up from the rates and capital improvements. So it's a balancing game across several funds that we're trying to fund this.
I think it's important for the residents to also know is that we do realize the importance of fixing these issues. Lead in our drinking water is not good. We want to make sure that our water that we do serve and provide to our residents is healthy and good. With that being said, I'm okay with the way that this is right now. However, what I would like to recommend is that moving forward, our Environmental Concerns Commission has this as an annual talking point, this program, so that way each year moving forward, we can start discussing whether or not we could move closer to that 100% in future years. This is something that I would like to see move forward as well. But that is my request of the board. That's my request of the Environmental Concerns Commission, is to keep this as a valid talking point on their agendas, so that way each year we can address this moving forward. Thank you.
Just
Yeah,
one
go ahead.
quick question. Our water is safe. Our samples have come back clear. I think we've only had one that was slightly above the limit for one test, and then it was lower than the limit the second test. So all the drinking water has been tested. It tested all the time. It's getting tested now. I believe 2 of them are actually our sample points I found out. Mr. Amori and someone else on the Environmental Commission is actually a testing site for the lead and copper. Their houses were selected. But so that way, all of our levels are safe. This is a topic on the EPA and regulations. I just want to make sure we don't have any action levels of lead in our water supply currently, but this is the requirements to get the material out.
Lastly, can you just recommend or advise our residents on what are some of the things that they could do to test their water on their own, or how they go about doing that?
So we are working on the website. I was hopeful to get it up. I've been working with Riley Pilar to update it. She's working on several things. So we're putting that information on there, but there is some approved, EPA-approved testing labs that can do it. It is a little costly, so that is a way that can be done. They can send you a home sample kit. You can fill it. I want to say it's maybe $100 to do that. We do put all of our consumer confidence reports online. If they wish to do that, I believe it's Suburban Laboratories is the name of it. And we'll put that information on the website. If there's also concerns, there's now EPA-approved filters, like a Beretta filter, that will also take out lead, is what they're claiming. So there's also several approved filters that you can utilize if that's a concern in your home. And we do have some of those on supply. As a requirement, when we replace them, is to give them to the residents for 6 months that they're given a filter. So we do have some of those Beretta filters. I want to say they're like $35 to $40, depending on the size that you get. And we're putting that on the website too, of locations and the approved filters that can be put on on people's water supply if they wish.
Thank you.
Okay. And, if you go to the US EPA website, there's all kinds of information on lead pipes, how to keep it out of your drinking, run your water in the morning, run it for a minute, let, whatever's sitting in the pipes overnight, get it out of your, out of the system. So there's a lot of information on it. US EPA and Illinois EPA have a lot of good information on that.
Just one real quick question, one real quick comment about the, using the village's money versus the customer's money. Anything we have in our reserves now was raised by charging rates to our customers. So I don't know if you remember the old Fram oil filter commercials, pay me now or pay me later. It's a matter of, do we use those monies now to paint the water tower, or do we, if we want to go to 100% program, we have to choose which one, the village money that we have collected based on a program where we were charging enough to do some things pay as you go, like the water tower. We had not planned to do 100% replacement when we set those rates for pay as you go. So I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Director Guerra, but to do the 100% replacement plan for everybody, that would probably affect rates in the coming years, whereas we think that the interest that we're able to earn right now would cover the 50% program, and that's my recollection.
Yeah, correct.
Data.
So our last rate study was done in 2020, adopted in 2021. This was before those regulations obviously came into effect, since they came in the last years or two. And so there was capital improvements, but it was all based on distribution system improvements built into those rates. Additionally, two things have occurred. We've had to raise rates a little bit more because we had talked to DuPage Water Commission and the City of Chicago during that rate study, and they weren't really forecasting any rate increases, and then have turned around and have done significant rate increases over the last couple years. So that has eaten up some of those margins that we were anticipating. But when the rate study was done, lead service lines were not included in that because that was not the regulations at the time. So yes, if we went to 100%, we would have to look at rates. I believe it's significant, and I believe we're looking at a significant rate increase from DWC this year on our actual supply of water. I think plus 20 cents. I have a meeting here in a couple weeks that we'll be attending. So that was part of the recommendation, was just to try to keep it so we're not also raising rates on multiple, because it does add up for everyone.
Yeah, correct. Trustee Kumar.
Yeah, also you said there was some consistency with the 50/50 and other programs. Can you speak to that?
Correct. So the program that you have, that you're presented here tonight, is kind of mimicking our sanitary sewer assistance program, or I believe it's called home flooding, because we also have some I&I programs in that. So we have a couple options in that. So this program kind of mimics that, where we offer 50/50 assistance on sanitary lateral lines to be removed or upgraded. Or not removed, I'm sorry, repaired and upgraded. And then we do offer 50/50 on I&I removal, which is your stairway drains, your sub pumps that drain into the sanitary system, which is not allowed, and that's a 50/50 participation up to $1,500. And then we also have some backyard drainage assistance programs in the village, which is a 50/50 participation. That one has no cap on it, but it's as limited as the funds allowed in the budget, because those projects are varied in scope. So it kind of mimics our other programs in the village in terms of participation, and then the guidelines that are required. You have to have 2 quotes. contact the village beforehand if this is some of the projects that you're looking at, so that we can make sure everything's eligible for the residents prior.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, Clerk Kornecki, please.
Okay, trustee Cordova,
Yes.
trustee Alfano,
Yes.
trustee Patrick,
Yes.
trustee Kumar,
Yes.
trustee Corkery,
Yes.
trustee Kozar,
Yes.
President Casone.
Yes. Okay, item 13D is a resolution authorizing the expansion of the scope of work for the Villa Park Fire Station 81 renovations project and the approval of an amendment to the professional architectural and engineering consulting services agreement with Kluber, Inc. at an increased amount from $24,950 to $78,900. Major Harline.
This resolution authorizes the village manager to execute an agreement with Kluber, Inc. for professional architectural and engineering consulting services related to the renovation of Fire Station 81, located at 1440 South Ardmore, Villa Park, Illinois. The cost of these consulting services has increased to $78,900 due to an expanded project scope. Staff recommends approval of this resolution. This is very similar to the next item, and in both cases, what we believed we had was a project that we could, that we presented the entire project with all three buildings in January to the board, or maybe it was actually, previously. Board gave us the go-ahead to do so. We had a desire to move as quickly as possible. We're trying to address some pretty significant needs to make the living quarters of the fire department and our paramedic firefighters much improved, and some other required changes. And since then, we found that these are old buildings. There are significant amounts of HVAC work that needs to be done that wasn't caught at first. So at this point, though, they crossed the $25,000 threshold, and they have to be brought back to the board. There's a lengthy memo that was prepared by Fire Chief Stapleton. I think that covered it pretty well, but we're certainly willing to answer any questions, or if there's anything else that the board wants to know. We'd like to move as quickly as we can, but certainly if the board has other questions, tonight's the night to ask.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have a motion for the resolution. Trustee Cordova?
I'll make that motion.
We have a second. Trustee Corkery? Any questions or comments? Trustee Cordova?
I'm absolutely all for this. It seems like it is absolutely necessary to get a lot of this done. Going through that list, it's like, yes. You can't do it without it. This may not be a question for you, Chief, but as we start getting into the work, the actual construction work, where will we find, or how will we budget for that?
Well, so,
hang on.
I'm sorry.
Do you want to answer, or do you want me? Okay, Major Harlan.
Thank you, President Casone. We have enough money budgeted. We had budgeted originally to do 3 projects. It won't be enough to cover all 3 projects. We have a total of, and I'm wrong. $1.2 million budgeted for the whole project to move forward this year. But that's only going to cover maybe 2 projects now. So we'll have to come back to do the budget process to budget additional money for Station 82. If we move forward with the project. So that's what we're here to ask you tonight, is to allow us to move forward. One of the first things we discovered when we started with this, and I'll shut up and let Chief Stapleton talk here in just a second, but we just don't have adequate shower facilities.
Yeah, I agree.
That was, and then we keep peeling back one more layer, and we find something new. So.
Yeah, I remember this conversation from last year where, and you were up here when we were talking about the budgeting, and both the firehouses have just one shower in each, correct?
Correct.
Which when you go out on a call, if you get, if there is a fire, you get dirty, you're supposed to go back and take a shower. So if you think about how many calls they have every day, you go in, not everyone can take a shower, rotate through there. So Yeah, when I heard that, I was a little thrown off about how bad that is. So yes, I think that all this is very necessary. I was just asking about the budget piece, but yeah.
Sure. So just so clarification, I know it's a shock number. I tried to go in much detail of why it went from 300,000 to over $1 million. Simple. The $300,000 was just an estimate to get some type of budget numbers together so we could put in the budget, right? So with that, also with the move into the Iowa Community Center, converting that to a temporary fire station, are we going to use it just for a temporary fire station, or is the village going to use that building in the future for any vehicle storage and everything? We're investing a lot of money into it. So with that comes some code compliance that we have to do. If we're just going to use it as a temporary fire station, we didn't have to put the floor drains in, the triple basin, or the oil interceptor. But the other stuff we have to do in order to be code compliant. Another thing is when the architectural firm comes in and sends their mechanical contractors, electrical contractors, engineers in, they realize that, wow, it's a 50-year-old, this is just Station 81, it's a 50-year-old building, has never had any substantive upgrades. The systems are old, and it was actually spelled out in their village assessment when they did the village buildings. We knew that we had a mold issue in the ductwork. Oh, we'll just replace the issue with that. But when the mechanical engineers came in and realized, you know, we don't have any fresh air intake in the fire station. We have no control over the heat with the boiler, with the zone. Over the course of the 50 years, it's been altered so much that it doesn't have heat in the boilers inside the HVAC system anymore. So with that, the 38-year-old boiler, might as well, with all the trades there, might as well replace it now while we're here. And then we're also finding out some other code issues that we never knew about, was the firewall in between. You know, a fire station is basically classified per the building code into 3 classifications. You have your residential, your business, which is your offices, and your storage, S1, S2, which is out in the bay, right? It's separated by the bay from the inside by 1-hour firewall, but the area where the bunk room is to the rest of the building has to be separated, and a firewall is from the ceiling all the way to the deck. So they have to add that, and they have to add a fire door from the bunk room into the rest of the building, which is a positive latching fire door. So all of these just add to the price. I get it. I know it's a big ask, but it's all required materials. One thing we found out today with, you know, some of the HVAC stuff that we added with this, we budgeted last year for a new AC. We need a new AC in the firehouse. We like, you know what, we're going to hold off and just roll it into this project so they can incorporate it. Well, we found out this morning, because this is an ever-evolving project, is we can't have the boiler next to where all the HVAC cooling lines are going to be. Well, we have no other place to put the boiler. It's in the mechanical room. So we're going to put an addition on, or more cost-effective is just go to rooftop units and just put everything coming from up top. That way it's separated from we still need a new boiler, we still need a new HVAC system, but we're just going to mount it on the roof. Now, hopefully, knock on wood, it doesn't require that, you know, the roof can hold it. So their architects are going to come back out to make sure that they can just put a steel plate on there over the existing trusses, and they don't have to reinforce the roof, or else.
The new roof.
Whew, it's a big project.
Yeah.
So, and we just found out that today. We're taking our time, making sure it's done right, because this is an investment for the next 20, 30 years. I don't foresee us building a new fire station anytime soon. So let's make sure we do this correctly. When we put the bathrooms, if we ever do put an addition on to Station 81, these bathrooms are unaffected. That's why we made sure that we're putting them in a certain place, right? So, but all of these other mechanicals, it has to get done.
Yeah, that was kind of my point. You know, is there anything else that, not like in a joking way, but like, you know, this is like you said, this is going to be here for a while.
And understand, this is not like a fix-all. We are still limited to 5 beds at each station,
Right.
maximum. That's all we can have. There is no more room.
Right.
And with this project, we're losing our storage room where we keep our records, our EMS cabinet, our office supplies, so we have to actually find a new home for that, which we'll easily do. We need the bathrooms, that's the most important project. The reason why we didn't have all three projects done at one time was because of the extensive, I like to call it an onion, where, oh my God, it's just, you're peeling back. And I'm gonna be honest, the final, this is not the final number, this is just an estimate. I don't think it's gonna go down, but one thing that I always questioned was the contingency of the 10%. I would love to have everyone come on a field trip to see the station, but, you know, mark it now, when they tear up the existing shower from the 50 years of it leaking, where it corroded the metal decking in the basement, when they tear it up and find out the concrete's bad, we gotta replace that. Wait, we can't put that on a bad pan, we gotta redo that. It's the onion that keeps peeling back.
Yeah.
Let's do it right. Let's make sure we have everything. And obviously, if it is significantly more, this is not the final approval for that. This is just to get the bid specs together, so we combine the Iowa Community Center and Station 81 to try to get the best. So you have some contractor that will actually bid it out. When that bid comes back, then it comes back to you with the final cost, and that's the final approval. So tonight is just for the architectural fees, which we've actually paid some along the way for both.
Right.
And then let's fix these two, and then we'll start working on Station 82. Station 82's projects has already changed, meaning last time I came back with the COW presentation, we were gonna put that bathroom, the ADA bathroom on the first floor, but the problem with that is it shrunk the day room. They didn't account for the chairs that are in there. You know what? Let's just put a shower in the basement. We actually have the room in there. 2 showers is the maximum we're gonna get. So with that, we don't need to put the ADA bathroom on the first floor. So we're just gonna leave the existing shower and bathroom as it is. And then we're just gonna put one in the basement. But we do have to address the bay floor, because that's crumbled.
Right.
And there might possibly be a collapsed drain underneath the bay floor. But Director Guerra is gonna send his guys out with the camera to make sure, so we know that going in when we plan this. I don't think there's a triple basin oil interceptor there. I'm sure once we touch the bay floor, we're gonna have to bring it up to code, and we're gonna have to add that in. That'll be hopefully halfway through when this project's going, but that'll come back to you guys also for approval. That'll go out for bid, because it's gonna be obviously a project over $25,000.
Right.
But we couldn't get this all together in one package.
Thank you.
So I hope that answers
No,
your
perfect.
question.
Yeah, the memo was excellent anyways, but I just wanted you to, yeah.
Sure.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions? Trustee Kumar?
So you alluded that this, all these fixes would give you about 20 years more of use of the facility. Are you confident in that number, or is it more 10 or 15? Because it looks like the space is pretty bad.
Here, it's a 50-year-old building. It needs a nip tuck. You know, it needs some little plastic surgery to extend its life. The mechanicals is what's holding up the building. Hopefully, you know, it's solid enough to
Okay.
stay up. I'm not saying it's going to collapse or anything. But when we replace the HVAC, the boiler, we put the showers in there, everything else, new ceiling, new lights, hopefully it's going to last a lot long, you know. Maybe even longer than 20 years.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, Clerk Renecki, please. Thanks, Chief.
sure.
Okay, Trustee Kumar,
Yes.
Trustee Patrick,
Yes.
Trustee Corkery,
Yes.
Trustee Kozar,
Yes.
Trustee Cordova,
Yes.
Trustee Alfano,
Yes.
President Kazone.
Yes. Okay, item 13E, a resolution authorizing the expansion of the scope of work for the Villa Park Temporary Fire Station Relocation Project and the approval of an amendment to the Professional Architectural and Engineering Consulting Services Agreement with Kluber, Inc. at an increased amount from $24,700 to $49,550. Manager Harling.
This resolution authorizes the village manager to execute an agreement with Kluber, Inc. for professional architectural engineering consulting services related to the temporary relocation of Fire Station 81 to the Iowa Community Center at 3 338 North Iowa Avenue, Villa Park, Illinois. Due to an expanded project scope, the cost of these consulting services has increased to $49,550. Staff recommends approval of this resolution. A lot of what we said in the last resolution is true about this one. There are some unique features. The idea would be to create a building that we could use in the future for stores. We're losing storage in the building that used to be Eclipse, and there's some other places that we'd really like to have this, as long as we make sure that we understand that the equipment stays inside, so we don't create something of a unsightly yard. So,
Okay, thank you. Okay, do we have a motion for the resolution? Trustee Kumar, we have a second?
I'll second.
Trustee Cordova, any questions or comments? Trustee Kumar?
I just want to say I'm happy that the reuse and the repurposing of the location and the forethought to think about the future use as storage or whatever is happening. That's all I want to say there. Nothing else.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, Korkanecki, please.
Okay, trustee Corkery,
Yes.
trustee Patrick,
Yes.
trustee Cordova,
Yes.
trustee Alfano,
Yes.
trustee Kozar,
Yes.
trustee Kumar.
Yes.
President Fasson.
Yes. Okay, item 14, unfinished business. I don't think we have any unfinished business tonight. Item 15A, new business, is a discussion on limiting new liquor licenses and gaming. It's for discussion only about strategies to limit the spread of video gaming without inhibiting the development of new restaurants, and there is no staff recommendation on this item. If anyone wants to open it up? Trustee Corkery.
I'd say that the best strategy to limit the spread of video gaming is just not to allow any more licenses that permit it. I mean, I've said this before, but my opinion is that a business that needs to rely on gaming income to stay open is not a bar or a deli or what have you. It's a casino. So I understand concerns about limiting the development of new restaurants, but if a project can't survive without video gaming, I have to wonder how viable it was to begin with.
Trustee Alfano.
So I am one of the trustees who asked to have this on new business, and it comes from the conversation of knowing that we have some work that's being done looking at some of our liquor licenses, but that's probably not going to be done until like July-ish. Was that right? Okay, so it was kind of like in the meantime, until we get that information, what is it that we can do to kind of have some control over more of the gaming aspect than the liquor license aspect, understanding that many times the gaming is kind of attached to that liquor license. I know that we've kind of created some workarounds on that, but I also know, and Manager Harling, we talked briefly, that there are other communities that have been able to kind of find the niche, and I asked for some information about maybe what Lombard does, what some other surrounding communities do, to kind of get an idea of how they're managing that. So I didn't know what you might have found on that.
Well,
John, go ahead.
So, I mean, without doing a formal report, what basically reading their village manager, Scott Niehaus, is kind enough to share a bunch of the records as they went through this process. They approached it differently back in 2017, 18, 19. They created a test run, if you would, of businesses to apply for and get gaming licenses with some restrictions on them, while telling these businesses that they were going to have a referendum. And they did hold the referendum was delayed briefly, but then they held the referendum and it passed by a small margin. I think it was like 52-48, something along those lines. And their process was to ask businesses to establish themselves for a couple of years before they get gaming, or require them to establish them for a couple of years. They also they have, and this is literally or very close to true, 59 different liquor license, types of liquor license. And one of the things they tried to do was to make sure that the amount of food sales was more than the amount of revenue for gaming. So there's a bunch of things that were done as they implemented to begin with that were not done here, and it's more difficult. It's, you know, I don't know if we're exactly trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube, to use that cliche, but it is, because of the way we've approached it, it would be more difficult. And I didn't have a chance to talk about what kind of lead time you would have to have in terms of if you want to grandfather some things and establish, like, by this time, you know, these are the new rules. So it gets into a whole bunch of analysis at that point. I think, you know, one of the things we want to do is to have this full-fledged review that Director McLaughlin, well, you know, just it's a quick way to get a doctorate. You know, Director McLaughlin is going to work on now that he's got the comprehensive plan through, or almost through, and so I think that one of the things would be to approach how you, as we've discussed briefly, how you would charge for each type of license. So I think it's very difficult to do much, because I think you need sort of a comprehensive approach to this to get the kind of results you want. In the interim, you know, I talked briefly with Attorney Wolf about this and used the M word, moratorium, and as she pointed out to me, moratorium is to stop you from, if you have a right to something, we're going to put a temporary hold on granting that right while we fix something else. Well, there is no right now. That you can only expand gaming by adding more licenses. The only caveat to that is those who have licenses that would allow gaming that have never wanted it. So that, I mean, I think the more comprehensive approach, and I know it's hard to wait sometimes, but sometimes you have to go slow to go fast. I don't know. I'm just full of cliches tonight, but I think that's if you don't do it in a comprehensive way, you may have some more unintended consequences than you would like. So that's just my, you know, not nearly as deep a dive as Director McLaughlin will be doing for you in a couple months.
And the board just can limit it by not giving out the licenses. You know, we have, you know, 2 licenses that you can get without gaming, so that's one way to limit it right now. Trustee Kumar.
I think the problem is not that we're not really able to limit it because the licenses have already been given to many people. So the issue is that. So the point that we can limit it by not giving, well, that's for any new business who wants a liquor license now. But there are many, many businesses out there that have a liquor license already, and they have all rights to gaming already. So that's not limitable, and I think the issue is that there's 2 sides. Some people want it limited and others don't. You could almost, you know, have a 50-50 on it. Some people who choose to limit it feel left out also from this process because they have a business and they're affording themselves, they're not, you know, putting in gaming, they're making a conscious choice, but they get no gain from that. They're actually kind of in a hole, so they feel bad also. So there's something that has to be done about the pricing strategy overall to correct for that. I'm hoping that Director McLaughlin comes out with a better pricing strategy whenever that is ready for actionable decisions, so that it's self-limiting in a way. So I'm hoping that pricing strategy will help limit licenses in its own way. If it's more expensive to have gaming, I'm assuming some people will choose not to have gaming. And if you can get just a liquor license, and we've already put in motion as a board the possibility of a liquor license without gaming. You have that possibility. If you choose that option, you should have some gain from that. It's because you have the option for free that the issue comes about. You have a free option for gaming, so individuals will assess that option. If you don't have to pay anything for it and you can put a gaming machine in and you're a suffering business, you're going to assess that option right away. I mean, that's something, and you can't blame a business necessarily for doing that because you'll make your business survive in any way possible. But what does that do to a business that doesn't have that option? That's also something we need to think about, right? There are businesses out there that do not have that option. There are other businesses, and not every business in Villa Park is a restaurant, for instance. Are they all going to start assessing a liquor license so that they can put in gaming to save their business? So that becomes an issue too. So I think the pricing strategy is going to be really crucial in this aspect in one way or form.
Director McLaughlin, do you know roughly, I know this is kind of a off-the-wall question, not off the wall, but I don't know if you have the data. How many liquor licenses do we have that could have gaming that don't?
69. I think,
No, because there's a lot of liquor licenses where you can't have gaming.
Okay, I thought we
because
had
they're not a
69
pour license.
total.
Right. But how many of those could have gaming but don't? Okay, well, that's, okay.
But is my number correct that we have 69 total liquor licenses, and not all of those are able to get gaming, right? 'Cause you
Correct,
have to
yeah,
have a
that number
core.
sounds right, correct.
You have to have
You
a
have a lot of
core.
licenses that are packaged.
Right.
And you can't have a gaming when you have just package.
Double A and triple A will get you,
Yeah,
those are the two
AAA,
avenues, right? Double A,
and now-
triple A to get you a gaming license with Illinois.
And
Double E and
double E and triple E.
quadruple,
right,
yeah,
okay,
double
so,
E
yeah,
and
that-
triple
We
E.
currently have 28 gaming licenses
Right.
in the village.
That currently have them, right?
Correct.
And then we could still have the quadruples, which would be, if you choose to assess that. And that's the problem. There's no gain to getting that from the perspective of a business.
And then, I mean, there's, yeah, I don't know.
I mean,
Make
it's
this harder.
psychological gain, and there is kind of there is gain, right? If you think of it economically speaking, there are businesses who will choose to get that. Their customer base will be the type that doesn't want to go to a place that has a different license. So there's a slight gain, but it's not in tangible terms. And making it more expensive will make it more tangible.
For the sake of time, can I just suggest we move on and then we can revisit this at a later time instead of putting Mark on the spot here?
Yeah, he likes being on the spot, right? All right,
My laptop died during the middle of the meeting too, so.
okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah, that's-
Okay, do we have any other questions or discussion on that? Okay. All right, we'll go on to item 15B, which is paid parental leave. Just for a matter of clarification, this is something that has been discussed. The previous assistant village manager, Suzanne McVeigh, had brought this up with the manager. They had been discussing this for a while. So I'll let Manager Harline kind of explain
Well-
where we're at.
Well, we were, she had proposed something, and the interim HR director, Liz Cott, and I have followed up on that and continued looking at it as I sent to the board. As part of that, I asked the DMMC to do a quick survey, and they sent the results out, and I sent the results out to the board. I think we could have a proposal to the board, and we were kind of aiming to have the proposal to the board by April 28th. But there are some things that would be very useful to the staff, and that is some of the parameters to implement a policy for paid parental leave. We obviously, right now, you have 12 weeks by FMLA, but you can only be paid for as much as you have vacation, sick leave, personal days, et cetera. So to add a paid parental leave, the question is, do we try and cover the entire 12 weeks as a few communities do, or something in between? And that's kind of where we're looking at, is this something in between? My take on it is that right now we're looking at trying to get a temporary person to cover for an employee we have right now who will be going on parental leave, because we don't have the kind of slack that's not the right word. We don't have the staff size that the county of the Cook County has, the county of DuPage, Naperville does to cover when somebody goes out. So we're looking at some, some more cost to put something like this in. So, there's a bunch of different things. I'm looking maybe a 6-week addition to the leave that's similar to what Roselle was doing, which was pointed out as like more similar city. So that's the kind of input that would be very valuable for us to get something to put together for April 28th.
Yeah. And there's very few communities that are actually doing it, correct?
I think,
I don't have your memo here, but.
Yeah, it was. I think there were of the 12 that responded, 5 did something. I think one or possibly 2 had 12 weeks. But yeah, anyway, I can look that up. Bring
Okay,
that
that's
up real
fine.
quick while you gather the
Trustee
comments.
Kumar.
I'm for parental leave. I'm wondering if we could do 6 weeks and not full pay. Like, that's a possibility too, or 12 weeks and, you can take half pay at that point or something like that. What is the options? Is there any other options? Because I know that, like in universities, a lot of times people will take more leave and then it would be discounted, the amount. Yeah, that you get. And,
Well, there's all kinds of options.
Yeah.
And anything's available.
Yeah.
Trustee Cordova.
Yeah, no, I'm a big proponent for parental leave. I sent an email to Manager Harline with just some ideas. But outside of just, and I'm looking for 8 weeks. It's the gold standard out there. I come from the private side, so we have sometimes 12 weeks, sometimes 16 weeks, which is outrageous, but working for multi-billion-dollar companies, they're able to afford that. So I get that. But looking for 8 weeks, and even outside of just the time there are huge upside for us. Number 1, retention. Number 2, recruitment, culture, and planning. And I think the biggest piece is planning. So when a person gets pregnant, they're not going to have a baby most of the time in the next week or 2. So as we look forward, somewhere upwards of 6 months, sometimes even 7, 8 months, that gives the opportunity for us to look for temp work or to bring someone in. And the last piece there was equity. So I don't know what our breakout is of male, female here in Villa Park as far as our workforce, but having it both for mom and dad, parents, both parents. So I will be pushing for 8 weeks along with FMLA. It'll set us apart from everywhere around here, and I think as we look at our staff retention as well as our recruitment, I know we're a little bit short across the board. This may help us kind of get over that hump there. So,
Trustee Patrick.
Thank you. I think this is really important. And I'm a little surprised that when this came to the table that we as a board didn't know about this earlier. This is something that is very important that we need to do moving forward. And like what was said earlier is that this also plays into account with retention. I have 3 kids of my own. My oldest is 15, and it wasn't too long ago that I remember my wife having to go through these processes as well. This extra time is so valuable to parents, and this is something that we need to implement here and that we as a village should have a policy in place already. Now, we talk about how we don't have the resources as a county does because they are fully staffed. They have more staff members than we do. But in hindsight, we have less people, less staff members, which means that the likelihood of this happening is less likely than at county just because of the numbers. This is something that we really need to pay attention to, and I am all for mirroring DuPage County's 12-week program for mothers and fathers and adoptive parents as well. This is something that the board needs to really consider and think about in depth, but this is something that we need to implement right away, I believe. So I hope when you move forward with this, please think of the importance, and I personally would like to see us mirror DuPage County.
Trustee Corkery.
I agree with Trustee Patrick. I would like to see 12 weeks. I think 8 would be the minimum, but parental leave is really important. The more the better. I think our employees deserve that.
Trustee Fano.
I would also agree that I would push for 12 weeks, and I am a teacher. I work in the public sector, and I will tell you that as much as I love teaching, it's these types of things that make it that much more difficult to have retention. And it's why once teachers start their family, they leave, and they're gone. It's the reason why I only have one. I would love to have had more children, but we couldn't afford for me to not, we didn't get any time off paid at all. So it was just, you get the time off, have fun, and you were just trying to kind of scrape by. I really think that this is something that is important, not just because we want to retain people, but because this is what we do when people are trying to plan for their lives. If they're going to have to make these decisions, I think it was Naperville you had sent it. You had sent us something with Naperville, and they said, we don't want to be the reason why people make these decisions for themselves for their entire life based on the policy that we have. I don't think that that's the kind of employer we want to be. At least that's not who I want to be, because I'm on the other side of that. And it was a really tough decision. I think that it's really important to go for more than 8 weeks.
Trustee Kumar.
I also have to mirror what Jorge says, that it should be for both partners. That's very important. I know from people who have children, a lot of times one partner will take it at their workplace and another partner will take the other option. Childcare, I have had situations with my kids with childcare at a very young age. And it is a very difficult process to let your child into childcare, planning that process out, getting your kid into a childcare situation which you feel comfortable with, oftentimes is the decision between going full-time, part-time, doing what you need to do. As a woman, I've made that decision, with both my kids, so I totally understand that we need to address this to the best of our ability. I do know that there's a cost to that, obviously. I ask for more information on what you expect the cost to be from the changes, and a little bit more data on what we're expecting, so that we know, it's got to come from some budget somewhere, so we figure that out as a board.
Manager Huntley, did Assistant Manager McVeigh have numbers that she was getting together?
If she did, I didn't receive budget numbers. I think Trustee Patrick has a question, but I'd like to say something before we're all done.
Sure. Trustee Patrick.
Thank you. I think it's really important that we tell our employees that we value them, and we do value them, and we need to send that message right now, tonight, that we do value our employees here. I think it's important that the board right now gives direction to village staff to have the staff investigate how we can comply or match DuPage County's paid 12 weeks for all parents, mother, father, and adoptive parents. That's the direction that I wish the board would make right now to give to our village staff, is to explore that right now. It is important, and our employees are worth it.
Okay. Okay, well, I think.
I just want to.
I think staff can get numbers together.
Yes.
As soon as you can. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, first of all, that's why I asked to put this off another 2 weeks so we could have a more complete presentation. We also had several other presentations tonight, so a desire to get better information rather than quicker information. But, when I got the email on the 11th of March as the previous assistant village manager was leaving, we hadn't had that discussion. I've had much more discussion with Liz Scott than I ever did with the previous assistant, but that's not because it wasn't important to the previous assistant. But there's a lot of things that go on in a village, and it takes time to put together a proposal like this. But when I was my oldest daughter is going to be turning 30 later this month. When she was born, my wife had just started a new job, and she had 3 weeks of vacation. And when she went on vacation, so she had 3 weeks, we went on, she took vacation. The last week, we went together drove our 2-week-old child on a very inexpensive trip across Nebraska to see the Oregon Trail. And it was hot, and it was, as not as exciting as we thought it was, and we came back home. And then at 3 weeks old, she was allowed, because she was working as a public defender in the appellate division, and very rarely were there any clients in the building, they allowed her to keep the child in the office for 3 weeks. And then at 6 weeks, because there wasn't anything such as paternity leave at the time, we had to take her to a daycare. And at 6 weeks old, we had to take our child and give it to essentially strangers. Strangers that were licensed, strangers that we talked to, and my wife cried for the first week of that. So if you think I don't care or understand the issue, just give me a chance to tell my story. So I do care, and I do care about our employees. I've been out there, and I've worked and I've talked to our employees, and I know this is important. I know this is something that could help with retention. So would, giving them a 20% raise. There's a lot of things we could do to support our employees. Some of them we can afford, some of them we can't. So we'll bring you back some numbers, and we'll bring you back some of the different options. And I think it is becoming something that a few cities are beginning to do. 5 of the 12 that we surveyed did. There's, Burr Ridge does 160 hours. Carroll Stream, no. Bartlett, no. Elmhurst, no. Glen Ellen, after a certain number about 1,250 hours working for them, you get an additional 40 hours. Any proposal we'll be bringing back will address both parents, and will also address adoption and so there's a bunch of cities that don't. Oak Brook, Warrenville, West Chicago, but Roselle does 6 weeks for birth, adoption, placement. So, yeah, we'll bring something back. We'll be addressing the trustees' concern that was raised earlier this month. So we're not trying to. I think we're being responsive. I think I just want to make sure it's not that the characterization isn't that the department heads don't care about the employees. There's a lot of things we could do to make things better, and we'd love to do everything we could. And so we'll bring this back, and we'll bring it back with a couple of different options, and then hopefully we can put something in place. Ideally, with the beginning of the new wage year, which starts May 1. And then we'll move on from there. But thank you.
Yeah, Trustee Patrick.
I understand it's a good thing to look at what other municipalities do. However, I do not care what other municipalities do. I care what Villa Park does. We need to do this. And in part of those numbers, I am requesting that you get back to us with information exactly on how we could mirror DuPage County. That's what I'm looking for.
Trustee Kumar.
I don't want to give the presumption that that we're complaining about management at this point. I want to clarify, this is not about that. It's about getting the rights for women to have children in a comfortable space in the way they want, and making sure Villa Park gives them that right. I've been a mom, and for us, that right is very important. And it also keeps growth in society. A lot of societies now, in a lot of countries, you have issues where people aren't having children. And that is an issue, Japan being one of them. There's many, many, many societies. We do not want to make that choice a difficult choice. And I definitely don't want that to happen at Villa Park. I have to agree on that. So, but this is not about, staff is the one that sort of are bringing it to us in the first place. So we're not complaining about staff, we're just trying to figure out the solution for our staff. So I want to clarify that. This is not a complaint about our staff.
Okay. Okay, so So you're going to work on that, Major Hartline? Or continue working on it?
Continue working on it, bring it back on the 28th.
Okay,
Yes.
great. Okay, with that, we'll go back to Director McLaughlin. Do you have numbers? Yes.
You thought you were off the hook?
42.
42, we
Yeah,
have,
42 licenses could have gaming.
and we have 28 right now that do have.
29.
29, okay, so there's 13.
13 that do not, yep. One of them is the Quad A, so, they can't have it anyway.
They can't,
Or
yeah.
sorry, Quad E.
Good, okay,
They don't have it. We don't have any Quad A's issued, so,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, cool, thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Okay, we'll go on to the village clerk's report.
No report, thank you.
Okay, our village trustees report, we'll start on my left, trustee Alfano.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I wanted to thank staff. Director Guerrero, I think it's probably your department for installing the solar signals at Prairie Path in Monterey. That's awesome. I know we noticed it right away, and it already is making a huge difference, and I'm noticing that at least runners, I don't know about bikers, 'cause we haven't had a ton I haven't seen any of the bikers come past, but in the morning I see a lot of runners, and they notice to like, oh, I should probably stop too, just by having that there. So thank you for that. That's a huge improvement. I wanted to maybe mention that maybe we should consider a written renewal application process for our commissioners in the future, just so we have that kind of written down somewhere. I think that just to have that track, and to keep track, make sure that people still are living in the community, which I'm sure all of our people are today, but just to make sure that we have that for our records. I think that might be helpful. You heard tonight, if you've been listening to the whole meeting at home, final comments on the comp plan. You have 2 more weeks, so reach out. It's your last chance. And then one more question I have for Manager Harline is there any update on when we can expect the budget book? I'm sorry.
No, that's a fair question. I'll talk to Patty tomorrow. I think we've got almost everything done. We're still having some problems with, but the biggest problem right now is the crossover from from Cassell to BSNA. That some of the accounts in the chart of accounts did not make it, and then we need to make some adjustments. So it's probably going to be May 12th.
Okay.
But there should be an electronic version before that.
There is, yeah.
And that's not.
No, I just wanted to know.
I think about it every day.
Just as we were looking at the budget today and the questions were coming up about the firehouse and our work on that, I just wanted to have something to be able to reference quickly.
Every department head looks at that book on a weekly basis, and so, yep.
I appreciate that. That's all that I have today.
Okay, trustee Kumar.
I just want to congratulate our Hall of Famer. That was fun. I also would like to say that, I've heard quite a few things coming out in Villa Park that we hope we're addressing your questions and your answers and to keep in communication. The election season is over. Does not mean you shouldn't talk to your new trustees and your old trustees. Keep us informed and keep communicating so that we get things done for the people of Villa Park.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Corkery.
No report this week.
Okay, trustee Patrick.
Well, good evening, Villa Park. First of all, I would like to thank the residents of Villa Park for electing me as your next village president. I am truly honored, and I am ready to get to work. With that being said, I do have the honor and the privilege of appointing someone to my position for the remaining 2 years of this seat. If you are interested in being considered for the appointment, I would like you to please send me a cover letter and a resume to me, Kevin Patrick. You can send it here to Village Hall at 20 Ardmore Avenue, Villa Park, Illinois, 60181. Or an easier way would be to email me at trusteepatrick@invillapark.com to my email. I'm going to make the deadline of this the end of the day for May 12th, and I hope to be making a decision by the end of May or early June. So if you are interested in being considered, I highly recommend and ask that you please submit cover letter and resume to me, so that way I could review that and make that decision by end of May, early June. Again, thank you. I am honored and privileged, and I can't wait to get to work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Cordova.
Two things. Congratulations to Kevin Patrick for winning. He ran a great race and a great campaign, so kudos. Second thing here is it's getting warmer. There's a lot more kids on bikes. There's a lot of children walking. And this kind of goes a little bit more towards what Trustee Alfano said, where we do have that crosswalk, which is always kind of a dangerous one. We both live right there, so we see it. But there's a lot of children out. They're out later, so just give it a, when you're making a turn or you see an unprotected turn, just give it a quick second look just to make sure, because these little guys they're cruising on their bikes, they're on their little the little scooters, which is terrifying for me to see, but those are the things. So just be safe, be careful. There's a lot of people out there that need our help to get another set of eyes out there, so that's it.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Kozar.
No report.
Okay. Gone to the village president's report. Kind of to what Trustee Cordova said, I'd like to say congratulations to all the newly elected board members, for everyone that, went through the time and effort to run. I also like to thank those that ran that didn't make it. They all put in, everyone that runs for a board position puts in a lot of time and effort, blood, sweat, and tears, and those that don't make it, you still have to congratulate them for, making the effort on that, so congratulations to everyone. Electronic recycling will be here this Saturday, the 19th, 9 o'clock till 12 o'clock on Home Avenue right here, right next to the Village Hall. You have to have your ID to show that you are a village resident. It was discussed earlier, Prairie Path cleanup will be April 26th, 9 o'clock, starting at the train station at Villa and the Prairie Path. So they're always looking for volunteers for that. And also like to wish everyone either Happy Easter, Passover, or Greek Easter, whichever you do celebrate. Make it an enjoyable one, safe, and happy holiday. And we'll go to the village manager's report.
Just a couple of things, and this is more for an audience member than anything else, but the DMMC is working with several of the other councils on governments to do a newly elected officials event, and I will see if we can reserve a space. I think it's in late June.
Yeah, it was June 19th.
I don't, I'm getting
14th,
to the announcement by trustee, or President-elect Patrick, so try and get that information to them. And new books by IML for newly elected officials have already been ordered.
June 14th.
Yeah, June 14th, so it'll be hard to make. But anyway, hopefully we can make that deadline. Also, this week you'll receive a monthly and a weekly report. The monthly report with data will include updates on the it's the GoGov system, but it also includes information that has been submitted by our My Villa Park app. If you do not have the My Villa Park app, it's you can get it from the App Store or from Google Play at My Villa Park. Just look for the just search for My Villa Park. And that's the easiest way because it immediately starts a tracking procedure. And we can take care of anything, whether it's a couch or whatever else. And we'll try and get it done by the deadline. And Parks Department was just recently made my personal life much better by getting one taken care of on the deadline. So, all right, I think that's it.
Thank you. Okay, item 21, executive session. Item A, pursuant to 5 ILCS 120/2C1, the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity. Item B is pursuant to 5 ILCS C2, collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representative or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employee. Item C, pursuant to C11 regarding litigation, when action against, affecting, or on behalf of the village has been filed and is pending before a court, or when the village finds that an action is probable or imminent. And also 5 ILCS 120C5, purchase or lease of real property for the use of the public body, including meetings held for the purpose of discussing whether a particular parcel should be acquired. And we have a motion to go into executive session and then retire out of executive session and close a regular meeting. Trustee Patrick, or Trustee Cordova? Yep. We have a second. Trustee Alfano? Okay, Clerk Reneke?
Okay, Trustee Corkery?
Yes.
Trustee Patrick?
Yes.
Trustee Alfano?
Yes.
Trustee Cordova?
Yes.
Trustee Kumar?
Yes.
Trustee Kozar?
Yes.
President Kazal?
Yes. So we will go into executive session and we will adjourn both meetings out of executive session. So, guys all have a good week and a good holiday.